So my story, I grew up in a very chaotic home. My parents divorced when I was 2. My dad worked 2 jobs to support me and my 4 older brothers, while my mom sought sobriety. I was abused by my babysitter's 4 sons and her husband every day after school from preschool to 2nd grade. I moved in with my mom, my stepdad, and my brothers when my mom got custody of us, and I spent a long time in fear of coming home because of the fighting that happened at home and the fear of coming home to one of my mom's friends detoxing on our couch. I started to get bullied in school when I moved in with my mom. When I was in 4th grade, we moved again, and at this school, the bullying intensified. It was then that I started accidentally leaving my lunch at home on purpose. In high school, I was assaulted at 3 points by 3 different people and was also in a destructive relationship for about 4 years. Not only was I struggling with an eating disorder, but I was also struggling with depression, manic episodes, self-harm, PTSD, and I didn't show any of these parts of me to anyone. I did a really good job at hiding behind the mask, and I was stuck thinking that I had no reason to be unhappy. So, despite everything going on inside my mind and going on at home, I portrayed the front of a carefree girl. In the summer of 2012, after I had just turned 18 and just somehow graduated high school, I told someone the truth. I ended up moving out of my mom's house and in with a couple from my church. They convinced me to get the help that I needed, and I went into treatment in an eating disorder inpatient unit. After some time there, I was sent to a residential transitional home that was partnered with that treatment center, and I met the woman who would become my therapist that I still have to this day. I can't really say that my time there really set me on the path of recovery, but it did give me a glimpse into the skills and things that I would later learn and use. Over the course of the next 3 years, I tried to find my life. I moved in with my dad, my stepmom, and my stepsister, and I started going to a community college and got a job with a summer camp. I went back to doing theater, which had always been a love of mine ever since my first performance when I was in kindergarten, and I was the only one who didn't use a script. Talk about perfectionism at a young age. I worked at the camp for 3 summers and then was hired on as an intern. During that time, my eating disorder had a rebirth and came back stronger than ever. With my eating disorder came my other mental illness. My depression grew, my manic episodes happened more frequently, and my PTSD flared. My paranoia was constant, and I was engaging in my eating disorder daily and in ways that I had never thought I would let myself. I had no hope. Until 2014 and 2015, when 2 little miracles happened in my life. One was the birth of my niece, Sophia, and the other was the birth of my nephew, Felix. I didn't realize how important these 2 little humans would be to me, and for a while I couldn't recognize how important I am for them. My mental health suffered, and I couldn't think clearly, and I attempted to take my life for the 2nd time. I was forced to quit my job and go into treatment. I went to a residential treatment, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I spent the first 2 weeks crying and isolating on a little black couch in the corner of the milieu. I tried to stay to myself, follow the rules, and do what I needed to do to get out, and I did. When I got to PHP, I started to put in some real work. It was a roller coaster because some days I really wanted to recover, and some days I really wanted to suffer. I bounced between a couple levels of care, but eventually was stable and in IOP. I was beginning to allow myself to feel emotions and gave myself permission to struggle as part of the process. I was able to discharge after 7 months, and I was hopeful and scared. I had no job anymore, so I went back to school and got cast in a play, and then somehow got a job at the Museum of Science and Industry. I was working 4 days a week and had class 3 days a week and rehearsals Monday through Friday. My harmful perfectionism came out, and I overworked myself and undernourished myself. But I expected that because recovery is not linear. I was then cast in another play. I was cast as the lead for Beauty and the Beast. I was ecstatic. I started rehearsals and spent any free time I had with my niece. That November, I experienced trauma again. This time was the most life-altering. I had been hit with the reality that life after treatment isn't easy. I didn't know how to cope, so I spiraled in so many different directions. I hated myself more than I ever had in the past. My therapist gave me an ultimatum. Go back into treatment, or I can no longer ethically treat you. Honestly, I was very ready to just say, okay, bye. But that next morning, I was at my mom's house, and my niece, who was almost 2 at the time, turned to me and said, "Aunt Amy, are you going to eat breakfast with me yet?" My heart shattered, and it hurts to recall that moment and the too many moments that happened just like it. So I begrudgingly and ashamedly went back to the same treatment center that I had just left. I missed my niece's 2nd birthday and my nephew's 2nd birthday. I had a lot of work to do to make this time different, and it wasn't easy. But it was real. I decided eventually to surrender to the program and trust my team. Every day seemed like trial and error, but that's kind of what it takes. Every person struggles differently, and everyone recovers differently. There's no cookie-cutter way of planning out recovery. I spent another 7 months in total that time. I got angry, and I stormed off, and I pouted, and I ate, and I opened up, and I found hope. I learned so much from that last day in treatment, but the difference was what I did outside of that building. When I discharged, I had, for the first time ever, a fully functioning treatment team. I was fortunate enough to be able to come back to the museum and was even promoted from extended seasonal to permanent. I did not go back to school because it brought out too many unhealthy thought patterns. I decided to follow my dreams and started taking acting and improv classes at Second City. I started incorporating mindfulness into my daily life. I make active choices to take care of myself. But still I learned that life is not always gracious to us just because we've been through treatment. At work, one day I took a shift in a different department and was put in a situation where I had to report sexual harassment and ended up causing someone to lose their job. I lost another friend 2 months ago, just days before the 3-year anniversary of another friend who had passed away as well. I had friend drama, family issues. I get pretty anxious and paranoid still sometimes. And I've also had my first behavior-free Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter since 2006. I learned that things happen and not everything is going to make me happy. Some things will make me angry and guilty and scared, and every and any other emotion. I've learned to find balance and cope and have patience with myself. I refuse to set time limits for myself in recovery, and I've noticed that without telling myself to be better by a certain time, I've had more healing and I've gained body acceptance and even some days of body love. I've been behavior-free for 323 days, and you already know that I eat breakfast with my niece every chance that I get. Even since discharging, I've had my struggles and days where I fight like hell just to get out of bed. But even more days when I wake up and smile and I live. I'm beyond grateful to be standing here right now, and I just want to leave you with this overwhelming truth that I've found. Hope is real and recovery is real. When someone holds on to hope for you, trust them because they really are. Your struggle is valid, and more importantly, your recovery is valid. Thank you.